Well, will you look at that? It's episode 210 of Rail Natter. Hi. Joby Aviation will save us and other nonsense. There's a large asterisk after the word will, because obviously it won't. Yes, it's Rail Natter. We're here to talk about, quite a few, many things that there are to cover. Yeah, so much, because it's a news episode, essentially. We are here for some news. We're here to talk about the news, of which much has happened. Most things we're going to be covering. There's always bits and pieces I miss or skip or feel like I've talked about elsewhere. Or I try and generally grab it all here, but there's always gaps. People always say, well, you didn't cover that in the news. I can't cover everything. I pick and choose a reasonably random selection that kind of fit into the overall capital T themes of Rail Natter. We must press on, though, because... right, good. Tom, hello. Tom Silburn. You know what? Let's go straight for it. Let's go straight for a question from the audience immediately. Let's go big face. Hello, everyone. It's me. I'm looking haggard, and I'm wearing I haven't got a jumper on. I've just got a thermal underlayer on because I don't know. I don't have no excuse. Right. So, Tom Silver is asking a very interesting question. Hi, Gareth. You have mentioned a study from the EU Year of Rail that stated that high-speed rail is the only transport that pays for itself and that even conventional rail doesn't pay for itself. Why does HSR pay for itself while conventional rail doesn't, if HSR uses a lot more energy and so presumably costs more to run? Tom, excellent question, which I can provide a reasonably straightforward answer to. Speed. The one thing that high-speed rail does by being very fast is that it's very cheap. Speeds mean that you need a lot fewer. The high speeds mean that you need a lot fewer trains, so depots can be smaller, staffing requirements are less, stations can be smaller because the trains don't hang around in the stations as long, or in the station throat, so you can get stuff through a smaller station throat. It's that speed. God, I look absolutely haggard. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm well overdue a haircut. Apologies. That speed is what enables high-speed rail to be that much cheaper than conventional rail. The study was reasonably simplified. I would love to find the study. If someone can find that study, I bloody lost the thing, and I cannot for the life of me find it, which is very aggravating. It's a good study. I read it, and then God knows where the PDF has ended up. I cannot find it anywhere. I've been searching. It'll be because it'll be named something like 2169_R, and that PDF will be somewhere on one of my various hard drives. God knows where it's ended up. If someone can find that on the internet, that would be very good. Lots of friends here. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I don't know why I'm here. Hi, Michael C. Sorry you can't join because of the time zones. That's exciting. Yes, so I'm going to wave vigorously because I don't know why I'm waving vigorously. It's not the end of the show. Let's go back to getting rid of my face because we must first of all say shout out to the class 210. This is episode 210, so we must talk about the 210. And here Detour, I notice, is in the chat. Here is actually wrong bit of the island. This is the north, but yeah, Northern Ireland Railways ran these things. I assume they were regauged rather than being put on skates or something. But yeah, the 210s ended up in Northern Ireland. The 210s, so unusually, I'm showing them. They look very, this very Mark III looking thing. The 210s, of course, go back to episode 2, 3, 4. About the class 158, where we talked about the 210s and the origin of the 210s. The 210s were a bit of a failure, but they were, fun. They had they brought the thrash box in before thrash boxes were cool as they are today. Anyway, some very nice looking new track going on at this depot in Northern Ireland with some interesting looking little buffer stops. Anyway, right, we digress. Class 210. I presume they've all been turned into razor blades. I do not think that. Surely none exist anymore. Answers on a postcard. Anyway, it is. Someone's saying that's an NI 450. Yes, I'm sure it is a Northern Ireland 450, but it was a class 210. This is just a class 210 with a different track gauge. And the reason I've put this one on rather than the BR one is mostly because there aren't any really nice high resolution photos of the 210 in its BR livery. Anyway, we are here, of course, to talk about jobbies. This jobby in particular, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 propellers, and one stacked 10 out of 10 smoke show stock CG woman in the cab, and they appears to be the same logo sellotaped to her T-shirt, the console of the vehicle, which worryingly she appears to be piloting. So all of us have to be trained pilots now. Plus the logo is on the weird chrome shaped thing here. This is just nonsense. It's a very impressive Joby. What's fun is that not only do the Americans not know what a Joby is, for those of you who don't know what a Joby is, Joby, British, a lump of excrement. The dog would do jobbies on the neighbour's lawn. Yes, that is what a Joby. That's what Joby means. So for all of our international listeners, I'm suppressing. I think I've got most of the laughs out of my system, but there's a lot of. It's very funny to me that this tech company that the British government is suggesting is worth any attention. It's very funny to me that the company's called Joby. That's very humorous to me. Anyway, so we might. Sorry, it is quite funny. I'm currently a solo host of a podcast, laughing at something down the. It's a good job you lot are all down in the chat, because otherwise this would be a very tragic situation. Anyway, right, enough of this. Let's get on with the show. Everyone, welcome to tonight's Rail Natter. Yes, as the Intercity 225 fades away, we must start with some good news. We're back, baby! Trams are back in public ownership in South Yorkshire. This is cool. This is good. Public transport should be publicly owned, and more of it is being publicly owned. In fact, we're starting this whole episode with it's the devolved power zone, because we're going to talk about some stuff that's been going on. So yeah, the trams are back in public ownership in Sheffield. So RIP Stagecoach gets stuffed, which is nice. And indeed, there's this nice, Sheffield got its trams back. Oliver Coppard here, rightly. Yeah, this is the kind of the mayoral vibes I want. I want the mayor sat on a tram, saying, just having a nice chat with us. I quite like this video. Actually, it's good vibes. And I don't know much about Oliver Coppard. Vibe check in the chat, please. In any case, Lord of the Rings on DVD, yeah, quite. Jack Elliott is into public ownership purely for kink reasons. Yeah, we're not here to kink shame. Oh, golly, there's me accidentally mashing my scroll, because I actually want to press this button to get my miniaturized face in the corner. Hello. It's good. The Super Tram, as it's called, which is a funny name for tram, but you know what? Why not put the word super in front of things? I don't mind that. The Super Tram network back to public ownership. This is good. It's not going to solve anything overnight, not at all, but it means that there is direct accountability of that system. It means it can be more easily integrated into what the city needs. The point is, the public transport is absolutely entirely woven into the fabric of our environment, whether that's the urban environment or beyond, and therefore it makes sense to have that in service of the built environment. Our cities grew up as a result of enormous amounts of entirely uncontrolled, certainly in the UK, entirely uncontrolled private behaviour, private shenanigans, and as a result, our country doesn't make much sense. Our cities are illogical. And then we did a load of carving them up and making a mess of them through the middle of the 20th century in aid of the car, in a way converting lots of public land into space occupied by private vehicles. What was left for the way the cities developed. We need to move back into cities being shaped and living and breathing for the people who live in them, and that's why public transport, particularly urban transit like this, should be directly controlled by the city authority, because that city authority is accountable to the city's residents, and therefore they get to own their public transport system. So this is good news. Jack Elliott's pumping out the goods. I just love being publicly owned. In other news, Stanley's a Tory in the next election. Yes, okay, thanks, Jack. He's here till Thursday. Right, so we must crack on. Let me click the right thing here. So, on the subject of trams, or rather things that are not trams, okay, right, cities. Let's talk about trackless trams, and then we'll come back to Raphael's question. So, Liam Thorpe from the Echo, Liverpool Echo here, or the Mersey Echo. Metro Mayor Steve. So we're talking about, this is Northern Labour Metro Mayor zone. So that was Sheffield, Oliver Coppard in Sheffield. Steve Rotherham over in Liverpool. Generally pretty good things to say about Steve, but this is a bit of a duffer as an idea. And also, once again, it's another series of journalists that I need to educate on what is and is not a tram. Trackless trams will be used to transport people to Anfield, Bramley-Moore, Dock, the airport, and other key locations. Nope, they're buses. There is no such thing as a trackless tram. Never, ever let anyone get away with saying the words trackless tram together. It's a bus. It is not a tram. It has none of the benefits of a tram. Trams require rails. You cannot have... This is... I poked fun at Philadelphia, but actually wrongly, because Philadelphia they don't say trackless trams, they say trackless trolleys, because trolley refers to the trolley arrangement above that actually powers the vehicle. So trolley buses, trolleys. Philadelphia has both tracked and trackless trolleys, so that's fine. But there are no such things as trackless trams. They don't exist. They do not exist. It's a bus. It might be a long, expensive, fancy bus but that is just a bendy bus with a slightly pointier nose and shrouds over its wheels. It's just a bendy bus, which means the reason why I push back on this is because with a tram, you have to move stuff out of the way, therefore the journey is improved. With this, all you have to do is buy the bus and run it, which, okay, good for the bus service, sure, but it's got all the problems of no improvement to public realm, no reduction in other traffic, so it's going to get stuck in all the other traffic, no potential accessibility benefit, all this stuff. None of those benefits exist, need to exist for this to happen. So you can get away with introducing it and achieving nothing. So it's really important to push back. And it was nice to there's me getting involved. Look, it's me with my new Twitter profile picture of me holding a mic looking like Bruce Forsyth. These are buses, please report as such. So trackless trams do not exist. It was worth me getting angry about it. Let's go back and answer Raphael's question. How do you apply the term city in the UK? I need to get Jay Foreman. There needs to be a Map Men video where we talk about what a city is. Perhaps a collaboration on that front. For me, a city is a high density built up area, over 100,000 people, or let's say that's when I talk about cities. That's kind of what I'm referring to. So anything under 100,000 people, I'm not too worried. But when I talk about how do you work out what that population is, I'd say within the travel to work area. So that means that things that have say they have a population of less than 100,000 might well have a population of over 100,000 if they're in a travel to work. If the travel to work area has a population of over 100,000. In the UK, it's defined by cathedrals. But that's a stupid definition of a city because it means that St Asaph is a city, which obviously it isn't. Ridiculous idea. Also where my mum was born. Shout out. Jay has done cities, videos on cities. Yes, I was going to say yes. I know you've already. My point is to reference back to it. Anyway, right. I digress. Tramways comes from. Doesn't tram come from tramways that retract ways for the quarries? Yes, precisely. That's so it's not. It's historically incorrect, but also fundamentally the whole point of having tram as a definition is that it's the wheel rail interface, but it can mix it with it can have tight radius curves. It can mix it with road traffic, but you're getting that benefit of steel on steel. Critical. Gareth is saying cathedral has nothing to do with cities. Historically, yeah, but no, it's just the UK government decides what a city is, and that's basically the end of the story. But anyway, as we know with everything to do with administration in the UK, it doesn't have any. There are no rules. It doesn't make any sense. It's just entirely political whimsy. So let's crack on. We're still up in north. We're in Manchester. And Andy Burnham is pitching for this cartoon that makes Andy Burnham look like he's in his 70s, which is a bit mean, really, because he's oh, that's red. You can't see it. Look, it's Andy Burnham here. I've drawn a circle around his head. Andy, it'd be great to have you on the podcast, actually, Andy. Yeah, we've sat in the same room and given evidence together at the UK 2070 Commission. It'd be fun to do that again. Anyway, campaign pledged. I thought this was interesting. I'm not saying that. Yeah, I do think it's good to have Northern Labour mayors. I do think that Labour should be given a pounding at every single election that they can be. I'm hoping they get an absolute walloping at this local election. I suspect they might not, but it would be nice if they did, particularly after today's continued transphobia. But anyway, fine, whatever. Let's put that to one side, because I just want to talk about... this is a really good pledge. This is talking about the fact that this is a key thing, a thing that I don't talk about enough, actually, which is really important, which is that this is kind of the standard kind of Boots Vimes sort of index type situation, which is only the rich can afford cheap stuff. And this is a really good... train tickets are a really good example. So how do you get cheaper train tickets? Well, you buy a rail card. But when you're struggling to make ends meet, how do you afford the... what is it, 80, 90 quid for a rail card? Where do you get that money from? 90 quid for a rail card. Where's 90 quid coming? That's your entire weekly budget for food, if not more. So where's that coming from? So, this is true for season tickets. It's true for all sorts of discounts that only the rich can afford the cheapest tickets. And it's really good that this is actually a pledge that residents who cannot afford the upfront costs of an annual B Network pass can get, to get the discount, can pay weekly interest-free payments through local credit union. Hopefully there are no other kind of underlying problems with this, but the issue with this is... No, but this is good. This is there's no. I can't see an issue. This is a good idea. It's good that this is being talked about, because this is a classic of someone asking if a rail card is 20 quid. I don't think it is. No, they're like loads now. When I was buying when I bought my first rail card, it cost like 20 quid, but I think they're like 60 or 70 quid now for a rail card. Maybe I'm thinking of the like family one, but like they cost loads. They're like, yeah, rail cards, pricey. Anyway, so this is good. What else is good? Some more We're sticking with Manchester. Andy, back in whenever this was talking about Manchester's plan for bringing rail into the B network. So this is a good idea. Yes, working closely with rail industry colleagues to make it happen. This can only really work if you get more majority service segregation on the rail network, which is really difficult without HS2 and Northern Pass Rail being built properly. It's very difficult, particularly in the centre here, to achieve the segregation, which then gives you the ability to run the frequency of service that would make this make sense. Having Manchester's sort of suburban rail services branded as B network is not a bad first start, and it's certainly if you remember our 6 points of permanence that back in Dr. Tennant's episode, most recent episode, which is a while back now, talking about the permanence the permanent way, it achieves some of those, but actually to really improve the service you need to have dedicated tracks that aren't interrupted by so you could probably still get away with freight running on them, but by and large you want segregated tracks so you can run a decent level of suburban service, and you cannot achieve that because of the mess that is Manchester's. What didn't have to be, if we'd retained the existing network. This is, as I always talk about, Beeching's biggest failures were not retaining segregated, not creating and retaining segregated local and long distance networks in major cities that could have been created from what existed in totality as a rail network in the past. So yeah, that serious problems in central Manchester for that. However, it's not a bad thing that this. I'm noticing some missed opportunities, particularly this line here that has nothing on it and could be used for more. There are opportunities that are being missed, but it's good news. I'm pleased with this. Integrated ticketing, good. Yeah, AMD saying GM Rail initially it'll be integrated ticketing, Staley Bridge and Glossop routes start within the next 12 months. Yeah, I'm excited to see how it plays out. I think it's a good step in the right direction, and you have to start somewhere, and this is where to start. But the challenges remain in central Manchester, and that the work to clear those, a Crossrail level investment project should have been happening in Manchester. If it's not for HS2, then plans should be getting made for Pickwick to happen as soon as possible to create that segregation. I'm not convinced by the name B Network, but I'm not a Mancunian, so if Manchester people like it, was there a vote on it? It might have been. I can't remember. But this is good. I've said might down here. I've said might because while the integration stuff can happen, the actual network itself is obviously requires a bit more thought. Trainworms. I think I found something like what you wanted. Trainworms. What is this? Is this the report, the EU report? If so, let me know. Right. So, as ever, sticking with the north though, and some mayors, actually including the Midlands, the West Midlands mayor in the form of Andy Street. He was part of the Michael Fabricant. Weird, very strange. What a bizarre combination. Anyway, the idea of the and I'm using massive rabbit ears here, new Staffordshire to Manchester rail line, which is basically just reproposing phase 1A of HS2. This is a shit idea. Just build HS2 as it was originally planned. No other solution. Particularly, there's lots of discussions of we can make it cheaper by making it slower. No. This is where the conflict between devolved and national strategy doesn't make sense, because in order to achieve the maximum local benefit, you want the services to be as fast as possible on the segregated route so that you can free up as much capacity in the existing network as possible. This is a crap idea. Just build HS2 properly. Sorry, everyone. So Stafford Bypass Plus. Yes. Yeah, this is just a rubbish idea. Sorry. Talking of other of weak ideas, we did an episode on VLR. We did an episode on both urban and rural VLR. Urban VLR is rubbish, dead, gone. It was the moment I turned up at that event, and the utility company said, "Yeah, we're not having anything moved out the way. We are. Everything has to be moved out the way for the track to go on top. We're not having the track on top of our stuff." I was like, "Oh, so this is going to cost as much as normal trams, but with absolutely no capacity. Fine." That should not be confused with this. This is rural VLR. This is just the recreation of an old bubble car, but for the modern era. The problem is that to create that lightness, it has no crashworthiness to speak of, which means it's very difficult to run on anywhere on the British rail network, because there's almost nowhere has a railway that doesn't also have heavy rail either. It doesn't have like freight trains running on an existing freight line only, or doesn't involve, is a branch line that involves running onto the main line for a bit. So there are very few places where this can run, and as a result of that, it may not live as a project. This is one of some of these, but there's is it MRAP? I think it might be MRAP, who are saying that they reckon that they can use this. So this is a community-led thing saying we can run this, but they've somehow acquired a sizable chunk of money for some consultancy work to work out what it will look like to get rural VLR running on their line. So on the Peak District Railway, I'll keep an eye on it, but I remain sceptical. Actually, it's not MRAP, is it? Who is the group that? No, it is MRAP, isn't it? Who are the Peak District Rail? Forgive me, I'm not good at remembering acronyms, long acronyms. Likewise, St Andrews Rail Link is another thing. Campaigners have sourced quite a bit of money for another study, so there's quite a lot of big chunky money around for studies for these campaigns. But again, I'm saying this probably, these two won't really come to anything, I suspect. I don't know what rural VLR's application is, and in this case, public survey goes live on this. It's not. It's an online survey, which doesn't really mean anything. The Scottish Government is uninterested in doing anything about opening new railway lines. It's had enough with Leave and Link. Even though Leave and Link will be very successful, Borders Railway was way more successful than ever hoped. Scottish Government just doesn't have any interest in new railways. I suspect that's going to be the case for a long time, despite there being several very good opportunities for new lines to be opened here and there and everywhere. Right, so. Let's press on. Oh, some good news. Shipley Depot. Hooray! So, Let me just go in here because I need to open. There good. Look at this. Look, it's Shipley Depot on gov.uk website. Shipley Depot. I'm no longer working on this, which means I can probably talk more liberally about it, actually. Shipley has a funny bit of railway triangle in it. In fact, you know what? Let's maps.google.com. Let's get Shipley up. Shipley. Let's show you all what's going on at Shipley. There. And do that, and do this, and then also do this. There is the Shipley, and here is what was Crossley Evans Freight Depot, and also, funnily enough, not one, not two, but 3 locomotives parked up. There's one. Where are they? I can't. Oh, there's one. There's one loco. Can you see it in the middle there? There's one loco. There's another loco somewhere there's another one around here. I got photos of all of them. There's another one along here somewhere, and then there's another one dumped somewhere else as well. It was a real mess, but they've cleared the site now. The site has been cleared, and they're doing surveys. And the design of the layout, I mean, it's a massive team effort. I'm not going to claim it's not my depot. It's not my design. It's just a huge team of people working on it. But the layout of the depot, the shape of the depot, is one that me and one other, shout out to Ian Green, lovely man, very capable engineering manager. Ian and I worked on this on the layout of the depot, the initial kind of overall layout that improved on previous versions that didn't really work. Well, no one had actually come up with a layout that worked. Ian and I did. And it involves dealing with Valley Road Overbridge, which is this pig of a bridge that just right in the middle of your site where all your S&C wants to be to open the fan of the depot is just right in the way, and also for various reasons that involve this bridge collapsing into the depths of hell. It's been strengthened with several concrete kind of U troughs under each span, and that they're all too shallow to allow for an electrified railway to go through it if you without having to do some serious thinking. So yeah, this is fun. This is one that I don't know if they have to claim this one's paid for with HS2 money, because it's the TRU pot that's paying for it, but we'll get to that. We'll get to whose lies in a second. Actually, no, I don't think we will, because I don't think I'm putting it in here. Yeah, just standard thing of the FT claiming more HS2 money, paying for things that were announced and mostly finished before the Sunak announcement. Anyway, this depot, the big depot building's going here, which will be fun, which has space for, it will have 4... possibly might be reduced to 3, but at the moment 4 roads with 4 space for 4 car vehicles in it. It's a nice electric depot, so it won't pester anyone. So it's a nice, fully clean, silent-ish electric depot. Yeah, it's great. It's going to be really good. It'll have some local employment. Some people will move across from Neville Hill. The point of this is that Neville Hill is getting closed for a bit because of a blockade, and there needs to be some, they need space for electric trains. And actually, this makes sense as providing for the suburban. This will be the suburban electrics depot for Leeds's West Leeds Suburbans, which should be really nice. It's some good stuff. It's a very, very cool bit of work, and also near the triangle, the legendary triangle at Shipley, which is always fun. Look, it's the last of the triangle stations, I think, off the top of my head. Anyway, that's Shipley. So, what this in about it? Passengers benefit from more resilient rail network. West Yorkshire, the maintenance depot. And there's not more resilient rail network. There's just, a little bit, but no, this is supposed to be a temporary depot for the blockade for TRU. But anyway, so the plans 100 million would be provided to deliver what will be known as the Shipley Train Care Centre. Why have we got rid of the space there? It's Shipley Depot. 100 million quid. Woo, yeah. Crikey. Anyway, lovely. Yeah, that's what's happening. Marvellous. Plans for Shipley. Rob Warnes. Hey, Rob. I've got a lot of time for Rob Warnes, actually. Boost to West Yorkshire economy, local employment. That's true. Hiring some of its workforce from within the route. Yep, fine. Susan Hinchcliffe. A lot of time for Susan as well. Good. Yep. Depot. Happy days. Lovely. Anyway, fine. This new station was committed as part of they managed to get Network North in, and then they managed to get them made possible by reallocating HS2 funding, but that's not about the depot. They're just saying it about the new station at the new station at what will probably be where the NPR station was supposed to be. Anyway, right. Let's forget all that and get back to the news. So, Shipley Depot, hooray! This is a visualization of that Arcadis have probably created that is of what the depot building looks like, which is about right. This shape here is because this is the bridge goes here, and it's all a very weird shape because the layout, the fitting a depot that does what it does into that space. I mean, it's like to the millimeter to achieve it. There's not much breathing space. Anyway, Shipley Depot. It's nice to be able to talk about it publicly. Oh yeah, you couldn't see my mouse in the previous thing. Sorry, I wasn't scribbling. Anyway, right, enough of this. Let's talk about some bad news. Accessibility, GB rail accessibility, alarmingly bad. UK stations found to have alarming accessibility inadequacies. German travel booking company Omeo combined first-hand observations with data from the Disabled Persons Transport Advisory Committee to analyse accessibility of 16 countries around the continent. The Netherlands came out on top with 99% of its stations found to have pathways built for the visually impaired, etc., etc. And the UK have reported alarming inadequacies for individuals with disabilities in national rail transport. Ouch. Rightly so. It added, inaccessible transportation systems pose substantial limitations on the mobility and independence of people with disabilities, contributing to social isolation and restricting opportunities for employment and travel, among other consequences. It criticised the lack of guidance systems for blind and visually impaired people. Using first-hand observations, Omeo said that it had thankfully found that 7 out of 10 platforms in the UK had digital displays of passenger information. So we were supposed to have had Atkins are doing their audit of the GB rail network for accessibility, and they're supposed to be published, I don't know, last year. Still no sign of that. Yes. So, still no sign of it. And it'd be good to dig through that. Alas, we haven't, there's no sign of it. And on bluntly, Eurostar, sort your out. Tourette's Hero here regularly tweets on disability issues. Sam Jennings as well. Shout out to Sam, friend of the show. Actually, Sam, we'll get you on at some point. Sam pointing out that this is an extract from the new wheelchair, and I'm using Sam's rabbit ears policy. Absolutely shocking policy. This is. I'm going to read it out verbatim. Travelling with your own wheelchair. If you're travelling in your own wheelchair without a companion for departures or arrivals at London St Pancras, we'll ask you to transfer to a station wheelchair if you request assistance at the station. Our team will ensure that your own wheelchair accompanies you to board or disembark the train. Once on board, you can transfer and travel in your own wheelchair. What? Who wrote this policy? What the hell policy is this? What? What happens if you can't make that transfer? What happens if you have, for example, medical equipment that's fitted inside your wheelchair? What happens if someone falls during a transfer? This is just all the stuff Tourette's Heroes pointed out. What if someone falls during a transfer? What if the station chairs are unsuited to your needs? What if they don't fit you? What if they're uncomfortable? What if they're, as in like pain uncomfortable? Not like, oh, I fancy a softer chair. Like, as in like, I cannot use this chair. What happens then? Why on earth is this requirement been introduced? Just let people use their own chairs. Shocking. This is just typical Eurostar. I'm sorry, there are some wonderful people who work at Eurostar, particularly on the front line. But as a company, Eurostar is, and as a service overall, the overall system is just awful. It's just awful, awful, awful. And this just typifies it. Really, really poor. Just shocking. Absolutely shocking. It doesn't make any sense. They'll be this is a risk aversion. This is just it's insurance liability. It's just awful. Needs to be torn up, ignored. People should refuse. The thing is, they refuse, and then they're like, well, you can't travel. Then it's just awful. This is why public transport being run by private operators, without the choice of not using a private operator, is awful, because you're trapped into there being no choice and you having no control over solving the problem. This is just dismal. Jumping about on a similar subject, Jim Pickard here pointing out something about Thames Water. We've all been watching, I'm sure, Thames Water's demise and its inevitable nationalisation by this government. Jim Pickard pointing out, clearly doing some, Jim Pickard of the FT doing some digging about, and had this to say, which should be familiar to listeners of Rail Natter when it comes to some of the elements of the fragmented railway system in Britain, namely the rolling stock operating companies. Let us read Jim's thoughts. Thames Water's financial structure has been set up in such a way that it's dizzyingly difficult to scrutinise. This is a company which, it would appear, has never wanted outside attention. Remind you of anything? Let's leave that hanging. It's the rolling stock operating companies. Talking of companies that do stuff with trains, renting them to people is one thing, but actually building them in the first place, we have not just Hitachi but Alstom looking to basically wrap up their operations in the UK when it comes to train manufacturing. Some of this is bluster to attempt to get government to do something about it, whether it's chuck them a bung or chuck them an early contract. But the reality is that this is not a healthy way for those companies to be operating. It's not a healthy way for the workers who are just like wondering whether they have a future. It's not the way that we should be growing our skilled workforce, because they're not then recruiting new people, growing skills, growing talent. It's a miserable situation for Hitachi at Newton Aycliffe and for Alstom at Derby. Just hopeless. It's for both factories are looking at total closure at this point, and that's not bluster. That is true. It's just dismal. And why is this happening? Well, it's happening partly because of HS2 delays, but it's also happening because of the lack of any sort of long-term strategy. There are so many trains that need replacing right now with no plan to be replaced. We have a need for a greatly increased capacity on our railways, and to carry more people, you need more trains. There's no avoiding that. Now's the time to be building those trains so that they are ready to be deployed as the need to increase demand begins. At the same time as us renewing the fleet, we have a desperate need. We have a chronic lack of capacity of building new trains. This is one of the reasons why the new fleet is being delivered by CAF. For LNER, more on that another day, I'm sure. This is just really bad news. So it's the 2000s again. Hooray! We're letting it's the bust part of the boom and bust cycle that is so sustainable for retaining skills, talent, and also delivering the actual trains that we need to use on our railway network. Shocking. Chris is pointing out, Rail Focus is pointing out that HS2 cancellations actually mean that we need more HS2 trains. Yeah. Yes. Plus Elizabeth Line trains, plus. Yeah. Messy. On the theme of our train operators, really bizarre news that I'm just baffled by is that Alstom are intending to operate their own passenger train service alongside SLC Rail, which is a consultancy open access operation that's going to be known as not Wrexham and Shropshire, but Wrexham, Shropshire and Midlands Railway. Confusingly, I'm baffled. I don't understand really. I'm a little confused by this. Pythagorean is saying that the Bakerloo replacement is long delayed. Yeah, Siemens factory is also at risk, although it's not being discussed at the moment. I don't fully understand. Yeah, we did have a Wrexham and Shropshire before, and it failed pretty rapidly then. Yeah, open access is a stupid idea in the UK anyway for train operations, but it's a weird one. I'm stumped. Don't really know what to say. You know what? What the hell? Why not? What's nothing else going on? This is a really pretty grim story. Of the many landslides, the bits of railway failure, infrastructure failure that are happening across the network right now, these aren't directly the fault of Network Rail. This is a lack of overall funding, but also just it's going to be this is going to be the theme of the decade of just more and more of our critical infrastructure failing and causing bigger and bigger messes. And in terms of the mess at Baildon, which is in West Yorkshire, it's on the West Yorkshire lines actually, we were talking about earlier. It's the link between the Ilkley loop and it comes down to connect to the line that then runs on into Shipley. I think that's right, isn't it? Have I got that geography right? Or maybe further on from Shipley actually. It's no, it can't be further on from Shipley. It is. It's the loop that goes Open railway map. Belden. Let's go. Let's do this thing. Right, Leeds, here we are. Let's tell you exactly where Belden is. There's Leeds. There's Headingley. There's Belden. Yes, I was right. It's the line that goes round from the Ilkley line. There we are. There's Ilkley, Benridding, Burley, Menston, Guiseley. Via Eschol Junction through Belden. It's a weird single track bit. It's a bit of a weird bit of railway line, and then loops round and connects into the Shipley Dockfield Junction, just north of the Shipley Triangle, and connects up to the lines going either towards Saltaire and on up towards the Settle Carlisle or down to Bradford, Forster Square. There's our answer. And what's painful about this particular landslip is that it's taken some houses with it, so people's livelihoods taken down the hill. I hope that they've been allowed to get in and take their stuff out, and it hasn't been condemned and no one is allowed to go in there. I'm hoping that they've said, yes, we can, this is stable enough that you can go in and get your possessions out. If not, absolutely proper tragedy for those people and they're losing their houses. 2 homes to be demolished next to this failing landslide. This is in areas where you've got very close development to the railway. This is an unavoidable pain that we're going to see more and more. Really not good. Jonathan Dixon saying Shipley to Guiseley, only link for Bradford Forster Square to the Wharf Valley. Yeah, agreed. God, there's lots of chat. Good grief, the chat is going wild. Hello, all the chat going wild. Yes, let's see. Let me pick up the chat. Let's see. Oh, Gareth saying, I saw one of the regular rail tubers do a video on the Wrexham Alstom thingy, and it's dodgy as. Okay, noted, Gareth. Just pop me a link. You know what? Let's make Gareth. You're becoming a spanner. Add as moderator, standard moderator. Save. You can drop that link in the chat. I'd be keen to have that one, and people can go and have a look. Raphael, Nokia have been in Bochum NRW for decades until a few years back, which is when the state government decided against further subsidies. Interesting. Okay. Open access operators seem to be London-centric all the time. Yeah, well, quite. Let's see. Right, Lewis Bergen. I should point out that CAF gave LNER free rein to do what they like with their units, whereas that's not true, actually, Lewis, I'm afraid. Not quite. CAF deliberately refused to offer level boarding because they just priced it as so high that it couldn't be included, deliberately because they didn't want to include it. So not quite true. CAF gave LNER free rein to do what they like with their units, whereas Alstom was more restrictive. Hitachi just offers exactly what they currently have, yeah. But with CAF, this allows LNER more flexibility, and I believe they're going to be 10 cars plus family room. That'd be nice. We'll see, though. Let's see. Right, so... Benjamin Pine, what are your thoughts on it? Let's go big face. Well, here, there's big face. Well, since we're answering some questions from the good folks in the chat, what are your thoughts on a new green hydrogen production facility and refueling station in Bradford? Hydrogen tends to be a distraction, but I can't see much wrong with this specifically. We'll get to hydrogen shortly. I should do have a hydrogen piece in here. Perfect, Gareth. That's fine. Gareth, you're now a spanner, though, I'm afraid, unavoidably. Right, so Rob Brewer pointing out that they live right next to railway cutting. Yeah, you're probably okay, but you might want to email Network Rail and just say, "What's the likelihood of this happening to my house?" It's quite a reasonable thing to email. Right, so I'm craning because I have to look. Oh, this thing gets in the way of the chat now. So I'm straining to reach my own microphone. I didn't think that through. I might need to move. Maybe I need to move that to there and that to there. That's fine. Anyway, I digress. So, right. Let's press on with the news. So, the next news item. Let's get rid of my face. Go back to miniaturized face in the corner. Here we go. So, leveling down fears over new rail timetable. The timetable. Right. Let's get into it. So, there are problems with the timetable, and the December 2024 timetable has been shit-canned, I'm under the impression. It's been binned off because Network Rail PMO, the part of Network Rail system operator that actually develops and delivers the timetable, which is an incredibly complicated thing. There will be a Rail Natter episode on the hell that is the British rail timetable. It's just way overcomplicated, way too many direct trains, way too many different services running on the same lines, way too many variable stopping patterns. It's just hell. It should not be as complicated as it is. And as a result of it being so complicated and made much more complicated by open access operators that act as like a horrid fixed point that screws all of your timetabling up, this hell means that timetables take 6 months to basically deliver, well, more than like a year to deliver, to actually develop and deliver. As a result of that, we have a very unresponsive railway when we're fixing and improving bits and pieces. So that, that's a problem. But also it means that it's hugely labour intensive to develop and deliver that timetable, and if it's wrong, you're stuffed. So, and it's not, you cannot just roll over a timetable. It's not as simple as that. It still takes months to do the work to get a timetable, an existing timetable, to then apply that to a new time with all the changes that have happened with staff and with all the stakeholder engagement to actually get that timetable. You cannot just say, oh, we'll just keep doing the same timetable for a bit longer. It doesn't work that way. So, lots of good stuff going on in the chat. I'll come back to the chat in a second, but I want to talk about this. So this is specifically referred to the East Coast Main Line and the fact that the East Coast Main Line is doing exactly the thing that I say HS2 would stop the East Coast Main Line doing. Admittedly, this is a picture of Morpeth where HS2 would, without fewer services run, without the getting rid of all the non-stop services between Newcastle and Edinburgh, and you're basically meaning that you have a Newcastle-Edinburgh service that's marginally longer, but it stops everywhere, so it becomes much more, you can run it much more frequently. Without doing that, like, put all that to one side, losing HS2 means the overall East Coast Main Line has a rubbish timetable that's just sacrificing local services just to vaguely achieve those through services, of which open access Lumo particularly causes hell. But that's a microcosm. Much bigger problems on timetabling. Freight being an afterthought in the December 24 timetable. That's like, oh, freight doesn't work with any of this. Issues with rostering not making any sense, with trains not, like the diagramming for trains not working and there not being the right trains in the right place. Just a real mess. And this isn't the fault of the timetable planners particularly, although the incorporating freight and all that is stuff just that they are, and as with so many network rail teams, under-resourced, unable to recruit because they're told they're not allowed to. Huge pressures, huge amounts of political meddling because government wants to press release this stuff, like saying, look how many more trains we've enabled. So huge political pressure to keep a timetable in development that is already not working. Just a real mess. Really not a good situation. So as a result of some of these issues, it is my impression, I think this is not public knowledge particularly yet, although I have been tweeting a little bit about it today. It's my impression at this point that the December 2024 timetable has been binned. There was a letter sent to the Secretary of State for Transport that required an answer on Monday, and the answer, I believe, came back, okay, let's stick with June 24, which means that any benefits of new services popping up will not be felt for a year for people, for example, who might have seen a performance improvement on the Hope Valley line. So yeah, binned. Oops. Let's jump to over to Europe, because things are not perfect in Europe either, in mainland Europe either. In fact, before we talk about mainland Europe, let's go back to the chat because there's a few good questions. Hello everyone. Actually, before I do that, I just want to quickly say, look at this. I won an award. Look, it's already got my smudgy fingers on it. It's the Young Rail Professionals Distinguished Service Award, which I won whilst also hosting the event, which is a little embarrassing. But thanks to the individual who nominated me, and possibly others, you know who you are. I found out who at least one of you were. Thank you, very kind. I've yet to find out exactly why I got nominated, the specific reasons given for the winning the award, because it was all a big flurry on the night. But thank you so much. It's very kind. Thank you to the Young Rail Professionals. The Distinguished Service Award 2024, the first time they've given the award. I presume it means career-wise I'm over the hill, essentially. But it's going to be proudly positioned behind me. Proudly positioned behind me for you all to vaguely see in the background underneath they them miles over here. So thank you for that. Anyway, right, let's have a look at the chat. So Lewis saying crikey calf. Yeah, there's more to tell. Lewis, we can DM me on Twitter and we can chat more about that. It's a bit of a painful one. Having spoken to the person at the top of the organisation that procured them, had some very interesting insights. Actually, at the very award where I won that thing. So, Trainworms. Was the document called State of Play of Internalisation in the European Transport Sector? That sounds familiar, Trainworms. Email me a link to that if you found it. Excellent sleuthing if you have picked that one up. It should have a table. The EU put a load of tweets out referring to the paper, which has some really nice schematics and diagrams in there. Let's see, right, chat. To think if Gilligan has his way, the East Coast mainland will have 140 mile an hour services, which will make everything even worse. Yeah, absolutely, real focus. I did paraphrase you there. Apologies. I de-sarcasmed your tweet, your reply. I'm just confused why it says young, can't even get a rail card anymore. Yeah, I know, I'm not a young man. Right, so let's escape from talking about me and talk about let's talk about the Netherlands. So there's an interesting story that popped up. I was writing about this very subject, and this news story popped up. Brussels does not accept the main rail network concession for the Netherlands for Dutch railways. So the Netherlands has across mainland Europe the railway systems are all to a greater or less extent liberalised as a result of EU and European Commission laws, rules, legislation, and lots of the railway companies, lots of the countries running railways realise that this is stupid. The Swedish model Sweden was the first country to do it even before the UK, and the Swedish system, I would not describe the Swedish rail system as functioning well. I've got a whole load of fun pieces that I'll be publishing over the kind of next year, talking about where different countries rank in terms of how successful their railway systems are. Sweden's is not as good as you might think it should be. Part of the reason for that is the fragmentation of its network in terms of organisation. And it is not a good model. Lots of countries have resisted this and have retained a largely monopolistic single rail company operating, even if they have still, as all of them have, split track and train, which doesn't make any sense for either, really. And one of those countries is the Netherlands. It has NS running the rail network. And a shout out to all the Dutch people, particularly in the Discord, but also who watch this. I know there's lots of Dutch people who watch and listen to Rail Natter, so hello. So what's happened? The European Commission is very unhappy because, again, the concession to run passenger rail service or to run passenger rail services across the whole of the Netherlands has been awarded to the Dutch Railways, NS, Nederlandse Spoorwegen. Spoorwegen. My Dutch pronunciation is bad. So this, obviously you just give them the concession to run the system. Why would you make it competitive and get some other utterly unknown company to just come in and employ 95% of the same people and have to learn everything from scratch? It doesn't make any. Why would that be competitive? What value is there in having a competitive tender to run a country's entire rail network? It doesn't. It's just it's patently and obviously stupid. But the European Commission it will not resist just really doing the worst possible thing, which is the EU is hopeless on railways, just overall hopeless on railways as a general rule. Some benefits, some points of light, but overall just crikey. So NS has funky looking trains and thus cannot do anything bad ever. Anyway, right, sorry, that's not from the news article. So basically, the European Commission does not accept the awarding of the main domestic train traffic for the coming years to NS. The Netherlands must provide explanations again. The case could end up in front of the European Court, which can impose fines and penalties. Just pay the fines and flip the V's to the European Union. Screw those guys. They don't know what's good for public transport. So basically, the government privately agreed with NS that it could continue to operate the main rail network. So a load of competitors like Arriva, Keolis, Qbuzz complained about this to Brussels, united under the Federation of Mobility Companies, Netherlands. So, a nasty lobby company, a bit like a kind of lobby organisation, going, boo-hoo, we wanted to run some rail services and get some profit out of public services. And the European Commission, of course, being a liberal organisation, was like, oh yes, you're right, that's bad. But Belgian. Or in Brussels, at least, anyway. Who's the current commission president? It's some German ex-monarchy, isn't it? Who's in charge? Anyway, that's another story. So basically, so the commission is arguing that the concession is too broad, that the government should split it up, should fragment the industry into bits, so they can privatise bits of it. Whereas the Dutch government insists that competition on the busy Dutch rail network is difficult to manage, is a euphemism for a stupid idea, and the transport minister. Rightly gives this quote, which I think is really good. "I cannot leave our interconnected domestic network to the market now. Now is not the time to experiment. Now is never the time to experiment." The idea of fragmenting and disintegrating a national rail network is patently stupid. For a system that's as intensively run as the Dutch network, it would be bafflingly bad idea. Just dismal idea. Just hopeless. So yeah, it's not, the grass is not green on the other side. This should be vigorously resisted and indeed reversed. Liberalisation of the rail market. Elements of it have been useful in terms of the encouraging flows, particularly of freight across borders, but national rail systems should be run in the way that the country wishes to run them, and splitting track and train is a very poor way of delivering. Certainly actively pushing to split track and train into properly separate organisations rather than euphemistically separate organisations is a bad move. France, for example, and Germany to a lesser extent, but certainly France is looking to actually reverse some of that liberalisation even more, pulling back to a single SNCF organisation. The picture is a little more complex than that. Let's jump to something completely different. I'm making very slow progress. Interesting, the current EU Transport Commissioner is Romanian. Thanks, Gareth. Interesting, useful point. People pointing out that von der Leyen is insane. I can believe that. Ursula, you've done a really great job on Israel, and you've done a really great job on Russia. I'm shaking my head for the benefit of those listening to this. John Byrne-Murdoch, who's the data viz guy from the FT, good person to follow. Doesn't always get it right, but generally pretty good stuff. First up, zoning now low traffic neighbourhoods. We're consistently seeing evidence that many policies which are supposedly unpopular because government says they are, because the system is designed so we only hear from objectives, turn out to be very popular when you do proper representative surveys. So there's some quotes here about low traffic neighbourhood report that the government did itself. This is funny. Adam Tranter also picked up that there are two key graphs from the now published government LTN review. After posting a survey invite to every household inside and outside the LTNs, as per new government consultation guidance, more people support LTNs than oppose them. Most people weren't even aware that they lived in one. Absolutely. So there's these two, both awareness and support for local LTN scheme. Most people had no idea. Other than in London, most people didn't know that they were living in an LTN because no one does. It's a thing that is not that interesting. And support for local LTNs was substantial, supermajority type support for LTNs. So, yes, right. Turns out that LTNs are widely popular and a good idea to boot. So that's good. Let's keep doing them. So screw government. I'm sure they've learned from that report that they commissioned themselves. Brief interjection of this from an interesting piece written by David Zipper, who's again worth paying attention to on transport stuff. More and more people are agreeing with the thing that I've been saying for a while, which is that, I'm not saying I was the first to say it at all, but speed limiters should be fitted to all cars. You don't even have to stop the maximum speed limit, but you just, wherever there is so in areas where it's national speed limit, you don't need to have a limiter. Fine, whatever. Let people wrap the car around a tree in the rural areas. But there is no reason why modern cars sold today should not have speed limiters mostly for urban areas, for 20s and 30s, for 40s, fine. and also for construction works, roadworks, average speed camera areas, fit limiters. It's easy to do it. You can do it by geofencing. You can do it by speed sign recognition. There are lots of technologies. Leave it to the market. Fine, why not? Who cares? But all new cars should have speed limiters, mandatory speed limiters for anything less than the national speed limit. Very straightforward. The reason I say don't worry about the national speed limit is two reasons, actually. Three reasons. First reason, because it would make it more politically appetizing, because it's very difficult for people to argue, well, I need to drive faster than 20 miles an hour in a 20 mile an hour zone next to a school. Second reason, because the risks in those areas where the national speed limit applies are much lower, particularly on motorways. The risks of crashes and the consequences of those crashes are substantially lower than elsewhere. So it's not fast driving on rural or on particularly highways that causes problems. So that there's no particular harm. But mostly it's a political will thing. People say, I assume by speed limiters you mean more than the manual one in the car. No, mandatory automatic speed limiters, so that you cannot drive faster than 30 in a 30, so that you cannot fight. So it's physically impossible for you to drive faster than 20 in a 20. You could put your foot to the floor, you could change gear to first or to fifth. No matter what you do, you simply cannot drive your car faster than 20 or 30 in a zone like that. If we can do it for electric scooters, then why can't we do it for cars? It's pretty straightforward. Anyway, so having tracking devices accessible by the government, let alone a company, to make localized limiters work gets my surveillance paranoia going. Quite reasonable, but for cars already have crazy surveillance. If you're in a car, you're being surveilled. The other thing is, like, fitted to all new cars. I'm not saying it necessarily needs to be fitted to older cars, but generally the people who drive like nutters are mostly, certainly in the UK, mostly driving new cars anyway, because that's where the vanity comes with it. So, anyway, fairly interesting stat is that the de-restricted sections of Autobahn have the lowest accident rates in Europe. People, because Britain is a country of an island of paranoid lunatics, it's likely that this will get called, they'll be conspiratorialized and our government won't go anywhere near it, but it should happen. That's another, we're taking a little sidetrack down sidetrack. Anyway, sorry, I should say that Vox, okay, we can all laugh at Vox, but also the piece by David Zipper is an interesting read. There's a thread he did with it, so dive in and have a look at that. Let's talk about Boeing for a minute. Boeing is a good story in what happens when you firstly put the accountants in charge. I'd recommend going and listen to the Trash Future episode. I think it's a bonus episode with Roz from WTYP joining the crew, talking about Boeing and the reasons why Boeing is going down the toilet as a company and probably will disintegrate into bits, and parts of it will have to be nationalised. Unless someone pulls it out of the hat, but I don't see it happening. Yeah, that's a funny one. This is Jay Ferris pointing out on Twitter that years ago the Koch brothers were caught privately saying that their policy was not to spend money on worker safety because it was cheaper to settle lawsuits brought by dead workers' families. The Koch brothers. Now it's acceptable to publicly question whether human life is more important than profits. Yeah, because on the New York Times front page here about Boeing faces tricky balance between safety and financial performance, bearing in mind that Boeing's negligence has killed hundreds of people as a result of their failed design of the Boeing MAX 8. The 737 MAXes, sorry, not specifically the MAX 8, but the 737 MAX, failed design as a result of them not being desperately trying to avoid designing a new airframe. They haven't designed a new airframe since the immediate aftermath of being taken over by the nutters at McDonnell Douglas when they merged. But also all the anti-union, all the union busting that they've done, the consequence of which has been that they're employing fewer and fewer people who know how to build a plane anymore. So anyway, point being that they're talking about, do we, there's a tricky balance between safety and financial performance. What's funny is that several leading industry experts have gone, this is not like company, people. I think the guy who's in charge of it, Emirates, said at Boeing, you need to stop caring about profits and fix your company before your company dies, because actually we don't care about how profitable you are. We care about whether those planes work, and at the moment they don't. So yeah, really good stuff for Boeing. Hooray! Marvelous. Lots of people moaning about GPS jamming and spoofing. I have to say my sympathy with that is very, very limited, given that cars murder lots of people. So when that serious injury and also people are saying the system would fail instantly. It works on the e-scooters. Like speed limiters work on the e-scooters. You just, it's fine. And if you don't think GPS tracking works, cars currently have the automatic speed sign recognition. This is not a technologically insurmountable challenge. It's a straightforward challenge. Everyone has a phone that tracks you. I'm sorry that the people paranoid about what their car is going to. You're being tracked on your phone at any moment by the fact that it has GPS tracking on it. Like, people know where you are. You have a phone. Like that. I'm sorry. Cars in the UK kill or maim 25,000 people a year. Until that number is zero, I have limited sympathy on technologies that track those vehicles and apply something that slows them down. Anyway. Oh, a fun one. That's an interesting one to discuss in the future, I'm sure. Also, your cars are all being tracked everywhere with ANPR. It just doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry, everyone. Your cars are all being tracked everywhere all the time. Like, the government knows exactly where your car is at any moment and can trace it directly to you. Like, putting GPS tracker in it is not. If anything, there's too much data there for anyone to surf. Your car is always being tracked all the time by government. They know where you are. The police can find out where you are in the car in a second by doing an ANPR trace. Anyway, let's talk about hydrogen, because someone was asking about hydrogen earlier. So here we go. Look at this. Yes, Germany instructive on hydrogen public transport. So, German hydrogen rail project funding suspended. Yeah, federal funding for all hydrogen projects has been halted as the German government investigates corruption cases around hydrogen. Oops-a-daisies. Follows suggestions of corruption relating to allocation of funding for individual projects. Some senior officials in the ministry have been assigned new jobs while internal investigations are ongoing. Oops. Oh dear. The funding suspension won't have a huge amount of practical effect at this point, because there are a few projects that I look shirtless with a white. No, I'm not shirtless. I'm wearing a white thermal thing. I don't know why I'm wearing that. I forgot to put a jumper back on. I was rushing towards the end of the episode. So you've got weird sort of strange outfit. You've got Antarctic ship explorer vibes, Gareth, tonight. Anyway, God, this episode's already gone 6 minutes late. I'm not even at the fun stuff yet. Good grief, I didn't expect it to go this long. Anyway, right, hydrogen. The Germany sacking off its hydrogen project because they're not working. What's funny is there's the corruption at the top level, but also the trial projects that have been running have been plagued by reliability issues, particularly in cold temperatures. The popularity of the islands is not great with the operators. So, yeah. Anyway. Problems. So, right. Euston. This is a whole episode, so let's not dwell on it. But I just had a chat with another journalist today. Shout out to her, she knows who she is. About Euston and the shambles that is Euston. Let's save Euston for another episode. But there's an action plan in terms of there are two things that need to be done right now to fix Euston. One, get rid of Avanti, bring it in OLR, and fix the service. Get the service reliable so that there are not thousands of people. Every train that isn't running, every train that's cancelled adds 500 people to this concourse. This is not good. So number one, fix the train service. Number two, get rid of everything get rid of all the marketing, clean the station up, get rid of as many dark colours as you can, brighten it up to create a much larger feeling space. Get rid of this stupid advertising board and put the departure boards up there. Get rid of these stupid V-frame things. Just get rid of those. Turn them into razor blades. Put the departure board information back where it was, and start thinking about new ways to do passenger circulation, because at the moment the concourse does not have the capacity So there needs to be some serious thought into what goes on in Euston, but there needs to be a proper ergonomics plan with wayfinding architects to deal with the existing station, because until the big long-term stuff of HS2 and Network Rail getting their shit together and rebuilding this station completely, until that happens, or at least expanding it massively, because it'd be a shame to lose this bit of Euston. Actually, I'm fond of it, even if it's totally unfit for purpose. This all needs to be it just needs to be until that long-term stuff happens, where Euston gets expanded by 2 or 3 times. Until that happens, and by the way, we should be spending stupid money on Euston. Massive amounts of money should be spent. Just absolutely limitless budget should be spent turning Euston into the gateway to the rest of the UK outside, apart from Paddington, which is for the southwest of Wales, South Wales. Euston is the gateway to North Wales, to the Midlands, to the north, to Scotland. And it should be a spectacular architected gateway. There should be no oversight development. It should be a spectacular station. Of course, it isn't. It's a mess. And until that happens, then the concourse there needs to be a huge amount of work put into improving the passenger experience at Euston, not least safety. Lots of the problems stem from the problems with the London Underground connection. There's no London Underground concourse, so that passenger flow just spews people out onto the concourse. The whole Euston campus is a real mess, and it's part of the reason why it's taken people a long time to fix it, because it's expensive and government isn't willing to fund it. But the reality is that they should be just signing off blank checks on fixing Euston, because it's such a critical link to the rest of the country. On that subject of treating passengers with contempt, Jack Fifield has written a piece for the Bolton News, which I think all too easily do rail nerds, do us within our rail nerd community, shout at people when they moan about the passenger experience, about the ticketing experience, about when they've overheard or been part of a conversation saying, you've got the wrong ticket, I'm charging you 150 quid for a penalty fare or whatever. Our ticketing system is awful. The rules around our ticketing system and the guidance for ticketing staff is awful, is based around a really bad just assume bad faith in your passengers. It's really off-putting, and we just should not have a railway system that is off-putting. It's our railway system. Yes, you charge rail fares, but we should not be off-putting to people who've made an honest mistake. But the overall ticketing system is just way overcomplicated and needs to die. It needs to be shredded. It's a shambles. And so don't shout at people who get upset and angry. It's a bit like people who go, oh well, if you split this ticket and use this website, and you could get that ticket could be much cheaper. If you book 17 weeks in advance, it would be much cheaper. Well, no, most people don't have that time. They want to be able to buy a train ticket easily. That gives them the sensation that they've got value for money. It's anyway, let's put that to one side. Talking of which, there's Leo Murray, guest and friend of the show. Under any scenario, GB rail demand will grow well beyond the capacity provided for today. If only there was some way to boost capacity across the entire network through completing a single mega project that was already over half finished. Well, indeed, Leo. Steer Group did a piece, admittedly commissioned by RIA, but saying that by 2050, rail capacity will likely have doubled. Rail demand will likely have doubled. Who's been talking about this sort of language? Anyway. Right, so I'm going to keep flying forwards. But we're here. We're at flying taxis. Here we go. So this is it. This is wonderful. The Department for Transport has truly lost it. This news story is exciting. We're going to talk jobbies. We're talking jobbies. So let me just F11 this and then F11 this. So let's actually go through this whole gov.uk article. Hello everyone who's joined. I'm sorry this is running a bit longer. We'll push on. So, the age of the flying taxi draws closer with the Future of Flight Action Plan. Drone technology could transform our skies and boost the UK economy by £45 billion by the end of the decade. What? Remember that 45 billion number, by the way, because it's the number that the government just makes up and uses when it's a thing they want to fund that might boost the economy. Remember the 45 billion number. Remember that. Here is an image of the Joby. This one's actually not by Joby, it's by Vertical Aerospace, and yeah, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 propellers, I believe. There, eight engines. I bet that's quiet. Flying taxis and routine emergency service drones should be a reality by 2028. Oh dear. Oh, they're serious. Oh, okay. New action plan will make sure regulation infrastructure is in place to support exciting, greener, quieter aviation technology. There's nothing green about aviation. You're having to lift a piece of stuff off the ground. Immediately, therefore, you're burning more energy than if you don't have to lift the stuff off the ground. Oh, my goodness. Comes as Aviation Technology Minister. Visits pioneering UK company Vertical Aerospace in Bristol to see technology firsthand. Okay. So, flying taxis, crime-fighting drones, oh, good grief, and critical 999 care deliveries could all be a reality by 2030 thanks to the government and industry's joint future flight action plan. No, it couldn't. Setting out a roadmap for drones and novel electric aircraft in the UK, the plan details how technology once confined to the realm of sci-fi still... This is funny. I know they've already done this on TF. I know they've already done it on TF. I could just, but it's so in our wheelhouse we couldn't avoid it. Technology, let's read this sentence and let you understand the problems with this sentence. Technology, once confined to the realm of sci-fi, could transform our skies. So it's still sci-fi then. With studies estimating drone technology could boost the UK economy by £45 billion by the end of the decade. I wonder what studies those are. I wonder which companies have written those studies. Huh. Yeah. It details plans for the first piloted flying taxi flight by 2026. So that presumably is the first trial. I suspect that won't even happen. And regular services by 2028, 2 years from trial to regular services. Regular drone deliveries across our skies by 2027 and demos of autonomous flying taxis without pilots by 2030. I mean, this is obviously just gibberish. But what's important, the reason I want to talk about this is not the gibberish nonsense. As with any gadget ban or tech nonsense, techno babble, vaporware, the thing that's a problem is if we have a look down at some of the... So the Aviation Technology Minister, Anthony Brown, no idea who that is. I literally cannot visualize who that person is. I have no image in my mind of that person. Cutting-edge battery technology will revolutionize transport as we know it. Right? This plan will make sure we have the infrastructure and regulation in place to make it a reality. I think that's copy-pasted from a different thing. I think they presumably mean aviation stuff. Anyway. From flying taxis to emergency service drones, we're making sure... Okay, whatever. The scary thing is what's further down here. So, blah, 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 blah. Drones to fly, blah, breathing life into small air drones, vertiports, developing standards to improve security, don't care. Engaging communities and local authorities so they can enjoy the economic social benefit, whatever. Right, so the benefits of this new technology are already being seen in the UK. West Midlands Police uses drones to tackle violent crime and antisocial behaviour. The police stuff. Drones helping frontline NHS save lives. Okay, right. This is all just technical public stuff, by the way, which will be inherited verbatim from the next government, whoever it is. So the thing that's a problem is, as we scroll down here, blah, 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 blah. Let's see. This. Oh, actually, the quote that I'm thinking of isn't actually on this press release. Basically, there is a quote that went alongside this. Is it? I might have missed the quote, which would be annoying. Let me just see. If the quote isn't here, it's very annoying. The quote I'm referring to is that we don't need to spend money on expensive existing infrastructure. Wait a minute. None of you want to hear the critical beep from Chrome's search function, so I won't do that again. Basically saying, it was a minister going, or a DFT quote going, we do not need to invest, we won't need to invest in expensive infrastructure in the future because these drones will cost nothing. There's no infrastructure requirement. And I'm like, where are they all landing? Anyway, just really worrying because it kind of indicates the issues with this attitude. It's just a classic... Look at this shiny nonsense that means we don't have to invest in transport infrastructure today. Classic. It's just, so it's not that it's daft. It is daft. It absolutely is daft, but it's also insipid. It is very, very dark, because it's being used as an excuse to defund actual transport solutions today. Talking of which, the Department for Transport's automated vehicles bill being brought forward. What was that other number? 45 billion. What's the self-driving vehicle industry economic benefit? 42 billion. Huh. Oh, well, these numbers seem very familiar. That's strange. So, okay, Ryan, whatever. Automated vehicles bill being brought out, because automated vehicles, so driverless cars, they'll never exist. It's just gibberish to consider they exist. And what's funny is that at the same time as that was being announced, Apple announced that they were dropping its self-driving. They were sacking everyone working on their self-driving cars. If Apple, Uncritical Simon, yes, this is the AM versus FM problem. Actual machines versus magic. Yes, it is. It's the classic AM/FM dichotomy. Driverless cars. So if a company like Apple is going, this is bollocks, this isn't going to work, this is nonsense, we're just sacking this off as a development, it's a dead end, it's just not a thing. If Apple are doing that, then it's a grift, everyone, it's a grift. There will never be driverless cars. So yeah, the DFT though, going hell for leather on driverless cars. Hooray! So you have the automated vehicles bill, with going on about autonomous vehicles that they won't exist. It's just money being chucked at the automotive industry for nothing. Fuel duty frozen as well in the budget, of course, for 2024-25. So that's also excruciating. And of course, the plan for drivers is still being pumped out as a real thing rather than gibberish. Backing drivers. So they're hammering on about LTNs, even though they're very popular. They're hammering on about 20-mile-per-hour limits, even though those are going to working well in Wales. They're stopping councils from profiting from traffic restrictions, which is another way of saying stopping councils from creating limitations on motor traffic, which is actively causing problems in York right now in terms of how they plan around what we actually do to get rid of to get rid of all the pollution and congestion as a result of traffic. Talking about traffic lights randomly, what? And then also faster roadworks and much more roadworks. It's a really strange thing to include in a 5-point list about improving things for drivers. Very strange. Faster roadworks and much more roadworks. Very odd. Very bizarre. Anyway, the thing is, it's also having meaningful implications, because it's also having it's having meaningful implications, like the ring road being approved in York, the outer ring road dualling plan around the top part of York, currently single carriageway, very, very congested. Dualling it, which all that will do is create twice the amount of space for queuing traffic. It's like none of the last 100 years of understanding how highway design works is real. It's like it just doesn't sink in. This stuff doesn't work. Dual carriageways don't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't solve the problem. It makes the bigger problem. It's going to draw more traffic onto the local roads. It will make congestion in York and around York worse, not better. Baffling. Absolutely baffling. Right. And so that's, Department for Transport has lost it. Now, interestingly, will Hines be able to help? I fear not. But Alex Hines is leaving Scotland, or at least leaving Scotland's Railway. He's moving over to be the Director General at Rail Service at transport.gov.uk, a role that I don't think should exist, by the way, because it's like, why are we having people as excellent as Alex in the DFT? No, the people who are excellent should be in the new BR. So ideally, you'd have Alex Hines picking up the role from Hainsey at GBR when GBR becomes a real thing and isn't called GBR and is called BR. It's so I'm mixed feelings on this one, to be honest. But Alex is a very capable political operator who has been part of the dial shift in favour of rail transport in north of the border in Scotland. So, could Alex shift things south of the border? I suspect not, because the Treasury is too big and too powerful. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens. In a way, it's good to have someone who cares about the railway embedded into the DFT. Will it make a difference? I don't know. Let's see what happens. Do you all remember the episode with Alex? It's let's see what happens. I've mixed feelings on this one. I'm worried about what's going to happen for Scotland's railway with Alex departing. That's one of the main things I'm worried about. So, without dwelling too much on the fact that the UK is the second most powerful country in the world, according to the Conservatives, and their weird montage tweet, which they've deleted, by the way, because it got so horrendously dragged on the internet. So let's keep in that theme of the UK being the second most powerful country in the world. It isn't. This is nonsense. So, there's Faisal Islam and Lucy Watson here, both collectively pointing out that London's Canary Wharf is getting a levelling up fund allocation of 250 million quid. Fantastic. Lots of people are laughing at this, but personally I have a lot of sympathy for the tough situation faced by Canary Wharf Group PLC, owned by Brookfield Property Partners and Qatar Investment Authority. Yeah, quite, Lucy. On a more serious note, here's Jen Williams, who's ever battling all the nonsense around levelling up, pointing out a variety of painful things. One of them being that there are a report from the Public Accounts Committee says there's no compelling examples of delivery from more than £10 billion in levelling up funds, some of them dating back to before this Parliament, according to the Public Accounts Committee, and just 10% of the levelling up funds have actually been spent on the ground. Oh, interesting. So levelling up really was a viable slogan. Interesting. In, I'm sure, totally unrelated news, the UK regional growth gap has widened as London and the South East pulls further ahead. And I'm also sure, in totally unrelated news, that since 2010, the UK has had the weakest GDP per capita, the lowest wage growth, and among the highest unemployment rates of any period of government since World War II. That's, I'm sure, unrelated. No, unrelated, yeah. Yeah, no, fine. And so, in other UK second most powerful country in the world news, here's China building an entirely new railway network for most of both Eastern and Western Africa. For example, a new mass transit line opening, although it's a hilarious looking mass transit line. It's like massive US loco hauling what appear to be Talgo cars with a very strange looking DVT at the other end. Very weird looking setup, but it is. It's the Lagos Rail Mass Transit Red Line being launched in Nigeria. So brand new systems being built on both sides of the African continent, up in kind of the middle part of it. The big wide bit of Africa on the west. You have several major economic powers. In fact, there's a big kind of EU style development sort of pan-national organisation that it's got a very long name. West Africa Economic Group. No, I can't remember it exactly. I wrote about it a couple of weeks ago. Anyway, big area of economic power in West Africa, and railways being expanded in that area largely as a result of Chinese sort of soft and hard power. But Chinese expertise, Chinese cash, the sorts of things that the UK could be doing. The UK government could just be relying on its own ability to borrow cheaply and sending designers and contractors out and building railways elsewhere. Will we do that? No, because we have absolutely no imagination and no ability to engage with a future that's viable. Yeah, absolutely, more than Britain ever did for Nigeria, quite. If you want to look at the existing railway map in that part of the country, in and around Nigeria and the adjacent countries, you will see a rail map that is defined by extractivism, because it's just railways to the coast to take natural resources out of those countries for the benefit of the British Empire and the other partner empires who are hanging around like a bad smell in that part of Africa as well. I agree that this is a weird looking railway system, but it is a railway system, and people will in the majority of cases the railway systems that have been opening are popular. Not all, but most. Very popular, very well used. Oh yeah, that's it. This is the news. 27 minutes late, an hour and a 27-minute episode. 110 of you watching, although more of that actually watched it. There's like 140 of you were watching at one point. 125, 130. Anyway, everyone, let's go big face briefly and have a little surf of what was going on in here. There's so much chat going on here. People going to Stratford upon Avon today for the first time, shouting about the weather. A very nice town. Robert, very random. I'm sure there's context for that, but yeah, I enjoy having a walk around Stratford. Interesting lampposts and bollards. Raphael asking if UK politicians or capitalist managers. Well, they are managers of and defenders of capital. That is kind of the deal with modern Western liberal politics. The Talbots are... Here we go. Oh, here's the knowledge. Those Talbots are from Wisconsin. Sets built for Obama HSR program. I thought all of those got smashed and trashed. Anyway, newly elected GOP governor refused federal HSR funding. Trains fell into limbo, finally sold to Africa. Interesting. So there's quite a lot of Talgos that are in circulation in the US. Quite a few of them got turned into razor blades and smashed to bits, but then some made their way back here. Interesting. Fascinating. Looks like the Amtrak Cascades Talgo sets. Thanks, Sir Amy Cardona. Yeah. There's some good. I love you all in the chat. There's always some good knowledges going on in the Rail Letter chat. Let's see. Let's see. Anyway, right. There's lots of lovely good chat going on there. Raphael, new trains for the S-Bahn Köln are going to be bought by the government body organising the franchise public rail transport and then provided to the franchisee TalK DB in this instance. Okay. Please keep finishing late so I can jump in from Upside Down Land. Hello, One Noun from Australia. Yes, I'm sorry for finishing late, but it means that Kangaroo Edition, it means that folks in Australia and New Zealand can join. There are no kangaroos in New Zealand, but people in Australia can join, and also New Zealand, which is still has quite still even more of a time difference to the land of the Kiwis. Anyway, the older Talgos retired after the crash, but for the there's so much Talgo lore in the US that we could dig into an entire separate episode. Anyway, right. I am going to end the episode. So, as ever, thank you so much to the audio-only people. I know the last couple of episodes have been a bit late. I'll get back into the swing of trying to upload more rapidly in the future. Sorry, but they are up there. You can catch them. Thanks for you all pursuing. All good podcasting platforms. You can listen. Patreon.com. But I just sneezed myself there, but didn't actually sneeze, but kind of internally inverted my eyeballs slightly. Patreon.com/GarethDennis for all of you to support me. Thank you so much to the Patreon people who do. You allow this to continue happening. I hope all of you are very supportive about the break. I know it was only 3 weeks. Didn't feel like it disappeared, and I wasn't resting. I was writing desperately. I'm in the last stretches. You'll be happy to know, everyone. But if you want to find out more about the book, then become a Patreon person, because you can join me and chat about it, and you get to suggest fun things to put in the book, like phrases that need to be included that you think are funny. More on that if you become a Patreon person and join the Discord server. GarethDennis.co.uk/merch for the merchandise, which I need to go in and update, don't I? I need to update some of the stuff in there. Particularly the Rail Letter logo having the capital N camel case. I will get around to it. It's just a thing I need to do. It's still first edition, so it's more valuable as a result. Apparently Google Podcast doesn't exist anymore. Well, I need to take the logo off, don't I? PayPal.me/GarethDennis for loose change and abuse. At some point I might get rid of it, but sometimes people don't want to subscribe. They just want to chuck a penny or two, which is very, very kind of you. It's a bit like buy me a coffee, except that it's not that anymore. It's just PayPal, which is kind of a bit easier. And the chat continues ad infinitum. GarethDennis.co.uk/Discord. Lots of you saying... Julian Roberts, I absolutely agree about the last word on speed limiters. Speed limiters, worrying about surveillance when driving. What about the surveillance you're already subject to through your phone? As a cyclist, I'd dearly love to see speed limiters on rural roads. Yeah, on small rural roads, I agree. I suppose it's just like I'd be quite happy to have limiters absolutely everywhere. I was already thinking. For political realpolitik, if you like, of finding a compromise to that. Gareth points out the Treasury Mug is already second edition. You're right, actually. There are already 2 editions of the Treasury Mug out there. 2 editions of Is This Mug a Gadget Ban as well. You're right. Anyway, right. Oh my goodness, it's always a pleasure to have you along. I enjoyed. Thanks Pythagorean for saying you enjoyed the news review. It's always chaos. Let's get my big face up. No, let's not get my big face up, because I need to tell you what's happening next week. Next week, we have Ralph Palmer joining us from Transport and Environment, who's done a report into Britain's SUV problem. And I'm looking forward to digging into said SUV problem with Ralph. Next week, we're going to talk about what the problem is, why it's a problem, what the consequences are, and everyone should think back to the episode we did with Theo Francos talking about battery capacity and lithium consumption when we go to this episode. Very, very worthwhile to watch. Anyway, right now I'm going to go big face before I say goodbye to everyone. Everyone, it's such a pleasure. I love Rail Natter. I love joining you all and going through things. Jack Elliott says solution : ban. Correct, yes. Yeah, pleasure to have you all along. I enjoyed doing the news review. That went way too long. It's already over an hour and a half. I need to abandon ship and leave you all in peace and quiet. Everyone, good night. It's been a joy, a pleasure. I'll see you next week. We've got Ralph joining us. It should be good fun. It only remains for me to say, while I wave my packet of Fox's Crunch, mostly eaten Fox's Crunch creams that's just been looming over me all episode. Cheerio! Cheerio!